In this video, we will show you how to replace your Bank 2 Sensor 2 Downstream O2 sensor on this Acura MDX with a 3.7 liter engine. This will be located under the front of your vehicle. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. To be able to gain access to the O2 sensor connector, we're going to remove the upper engine cover. This is going to be very simple. You're going to find two flathead screws that you're going to turn a quarter turn counterclockwise. Continuing from here, if you were to reach along the back side of the engine cover, you want to give it a light tug straight upward. It has two locating tabs held into rubber grommets. Remove your engine cover, a quick inspection, set it aside. With the engine cover out of the way, we can see the engine oil cap, and if you were to just move below that, you're going to find two wiring harnesses. For the Bank 2 Sensor 2 Downstream O2 sensor, we're going to be removing the left side connector from its mounting bracket. To be able to do this, there's a small locking tab. We'll squeeze it in and pull this down and out of place. The locking tab is on the inboard side, close to the engine. Now let's disconnect the electrical connector. When doing this, you want to try to find the locking tab. You can see it right out there in the open. We'll squeeze on that and pull this apart. A quick inspection on both sides for corrosion. If you see any, you want to make sure you take care of it. Now let's follow the wiring harness down. You can see where it's mounted to this bracket. For this, it's easiest to remove if you just use a long pry bar and give it a loving tap with a hammer, essentially just breaking it free. We are not going to be reusing this part, but we do need to have the bracket still in good working order. Now that we have that separated, let's move just underneath that area. You're going to find that you have another mounting point where the wiring harness is attached to a bracket. Once again, I'm just going to break this free. During the installation, if we have to, you could use some wire ties to hold everything in place. Now from up here, you can see the next mounting point, but it's actually easier to remove from under the front of the vehicle. Let's make our way there. Now we're under the front of the vehicle. We can see the exhaust pipe. You can see the Bank 2 Sensor 2 O2 sensor. If you were to follow the wiring harness towards the driver's side, you'll find one mounting point. We'll go ahead and dislodge this. The next one's just above it. Now that we have movement from there, we can follow this up. Now let's make our way to dislodging the O2 sensor from the exhaust pipe. To remove the O2 sensor from the exhaust pipe, we're going to be using an O2 sensor socket. These can come in all different shapes and sizes, but essentially the socket should have an area for the wiring to make its way through. There it is, friend. Once you have the O2 sensor out of the exhaust pipe, the next thing you need to do is clean and inspect the mounting point right up in this area. We want to make sure we have a flat base for the O2 sensor gasket to rest against, but also inspect the threaded portion as well. If it looks like anything's stripped or damaged, you might have to replace that exhaust pipe. I'm going to use some fine sandpaper on this. We'll give it a close inspection afterward. We're feeling for any raised areas. You definitely do not want to have an exhaust leak. Now it's time to install our Bank 2 Sensor 2 O2 sensor. Something to think about is it may be fairly difficult to be able to take this connector and bring it all the way up to the top from the bottom. Rather than doing that, we'll make our way back up inside the engine compartment while still having our protective cover on this O2 sensor. We can carefully guide this down to the bottom, and we'll start at the top with the electrical connector. Now up at the top, we have our O2 sensor. We're going to start with the electrical connector. We'll connect in the two portions together, listen for a click, make sure they're secured together. After that, we can secure this to the bracket, and then we'll gently bring the O2 sensor down into the proper placement, making its way down towards the bottom of the vehicle. Press that in, we'll listen for a click, give it a tug, we want to make sure it's properly secured. Continuing on, we want to make sure we slide this onto the bracket and lock it in. To mount this to the bracket, we're going to go under the bracket and then lift it straight up to lock it in. Get it aligned. Double check, make sure that's properly secured. Continuing from here, we still have our protective cover on the O2 sensor so we do not cause any damage. Let's start lowering this down into position, making sure that it will align with each one of the mounting points along the way. Go in between here. Right down there. Now before we mount this to any of the mounting points up here, let's make our way under the vehicle and attach the O2 sensor to the exhaust pipe. Now we're under the vehicle. We can remove the protective cover. Slide that right off of there. We'll dispose of that properly. Continuing on, since you know you're going to have to turn this clockwise to screw it into the exhaust pipe, we want to make sure that we turn this counterclockwise a few turns before installing it into the pipe. We already have the electrical connector connected and we don't want to have the wires twisted too many times. We'll get this in position in the exhaust pipe, starting it in by hand so we're sure we are not cross-threading it into the wrong position. Once it's bottomed out by hand, continue on snugging it up with your O2 sensor socket. Once you have it snug, torque that to 33 foot-pounds. To be able to more easily gain access to the mounting points here, I'm just going to take down the front shield so I can reach up inside here and attach that wire. To take down the shield, you're going to find that you have two plastic push clips. I'm going to use a trim tool to take these down. For your push clips, you just want to carefully start removing the center. That'll unlock it, and then you can remove the outer portion as well. A quick inspection, you will be reusing these. We'll continue on to the second one here. Now once you have some movement here, you should be able to carefully start flexing this away. We're going to pull it down, but you're going to find you have another push clip. This push clip makes its way through the skid plate up and into the subframe. For this, it's fairly easy to just take hold of the shield itself and give it a couple tugs downward to start separating that. Once it makes its way down, we'll carefully reach up in here so we can gain access to those mounting points. Now we can pull that down and out of the way, and we can start using our wire tie. I'm going to be using this wire tie. I'll slide it through the bracket port, around the cable, and then bring it back around and tie it in. We want to make sure this is secure so it doesn't hang down and potentially get damaged. There we are. We've got it going around that bracket now. We'll just make sure this is nice and tight. Trim off your excess. Let's get this next one down here. Now let's get our shields back in place here. We're going to pull down on the rearward shield. We'll press the forward one up. Continuing from there, we had that push clip that we pulled down from the subframe. We're going to align that. We'll press this whole thing upward, locking it in. With that in the upright position, we'll continue on along this area. We had the area with the two push clips. When installing your push clips, you want to make sure you have the ports aligned. Have the clips in the unlocked position with the center pulled out. We'll drive it through the first portion here and up and through the second shield. At that point, we can lock them together by pressing in the center. We'll repeat the process for the next one. Double check, make sure your shields are completely secured. At this point, we can make our way up and into the engine compartment. Just get this on here, make sure it's nice and tight. We'll just trim off the excess. Now at this point, we've already attached the connector up here. We torqued the O2 sensor into the pipe and we secured it at all 4 of its mounting points, making its way up to here. One last quick inspection, and let's reinstall our engine cover. Just have to maneuver this around. You should feel it want to fall into place. We'll press it in. Just give it a little wiggle along the backside there. If it does lift up, it's not locked in. Now it's time for those mounting screws. For these, you just turn them counterclockwise till they want to drop down, then turn them a quarter turn clockwise to lock them in. Double check, make sure your cover is completely secured to your vehicle. Okay friend, we finished our installation. At this point, hop in the passenger compartment. Start up the vehicle, let it run for a short while. Make sure you have no misfire, no check engine light, close the hood, and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.